In my humble opinion, I believe that the reaction of the disciples is perhaps no different than what our reaction would have been. Think about it. It was dark on the Sea of Galilee. Suddenly a storm erupts, casting waves into the boat, nearly swamping it and sinking it. However, have you ever noticed in your life, as I have in mine, how a reaction to a present danger and chaos can lead to an overreaction? Anybody? Sociologists have studied the dynamics of mob mentality for decades, where over time, a reasonable reaction can quickly evolve into a radical overreaction. At times, our brains seem hot-wired to conjure up the worst-case scenario, the very worst outcome or consequence in our lives. And so many times, living with our chaos, we, like the disciples, have a tendency to forget that Jesus is nearer to us than our chaos. Our fears often shift us to isolation, desperation, and too often futility, while Jesus stands ready amidst our storms. That truly is the message of the 4th chapter of Mark's Gospel. Now, my confession this morning is this. I literally reviewed over 36 different sermons on this passage, and every single one of them dwelled on the necessity of our faith in trusting that Jesus is always there, always with us, always beside us to still the water of our storms. And if you have spent any time at all within mainstream Protestant theology, you have heard over and over and over and over and over again that no chaos is too strong for Jesus, and that Jesus is always right there waiting for us to call on Him, and that grace will triumph over our chaos. But many times, as is the situation, when we hear things over and over and over and over again, they somehow seem to lose their power and become lackluster. We hear that, but it really doesn't touch us to the core. Now, the 36 sermons that I reviewed for my sermon this morning said that's the end of the story. End of sermon. You might get out of here early. High five. End of the story. We're going to head out into the world, into our chaos, knowing that Jesus is right alongside us. However, while that synopsis is true, I'm not denying that. It is very true. If we allow ourselves to delve deeper just for a moment, I believe we will be privy to the theology that makes Jesus simply a powerful psychiatrist in the sky somewhere, or a genie whose sole purpose is to fix our problems so that we will be happy and comfortable. Stopping here, I believe, leaves out an essential understanding of what it means to be a disciple and to be a Christian. Let me explain. these verses, I believe, hides an important message amidst our chaos and the chaos of the disciples. And here it is. I believe that Jesus led the disciples into that chaos. He's the one that said, get in your boats and go out there. Now, I don't know if Jesus had any meteorological training or not, whether he knew a cold front was coming through and a storm would erupt. I don't know. But let's not forget that Jesus led them into that chaos. And I propose Jesus does the same for us. That it is Jesus that leads us at times into our chaos. Pope Francis recently said in one of his sermons, and I quote him, very short, quote, "We are turning the earth into an immense pile of filth." End quote. May I repeat that? We are turning the earth into an immense pile of filth. Wouldn't you love to hear the rest of that sermon? As he was sharing that, he was referring to the situations of mass shootings, of human trafficking, of bullying, of war, of mass migration of people leaving their homeland just so that they might live and see another day. He shared those words in the midst of the threat of nuclear proliferation. Now, given it all, friends, it would be very easy for us to come this morning, to be comforted, safe, secure, and say, that's just not our problem. I would much rather just reside in my safety and wait for someone else to take care of it. However, if we truly believe that our mission, and as our mission as United Methodists, and that our mission as the Endwell United Methodist Church is to transform the world, that means I humbly believe that we then must become the first responders. You hear it all the time. Our first responders command our respect. But have you ever thought that being a disciple for Jesus Christ makes us first responders? Those who run toward pain, toward despair, those willing to sacrifice our apathy so that someone might know peace and justice. And as we do, as our faith brings us to the places of despair, anguish, hostility, and hopelessness, we then remember who's in the boat alongside us. As we go to those deep, dark places, we then realize that Jesus is there. As we bring our compassion, resolve, and grace, we also bring Jesus. This is the gospel story and the mission of the church, lived out in the world of absolute chaos and utter confusion. Because no longer can we cower. No longer can we sit by idly and commend our silence, as we must relinquish the luxury of holy complacency. I end this. No matter where you stand on certain situations in our society, in our world, in our politics, I think we can all agree that there is no shortage of chaos. That's maybe a place to start. There is no shortage of absolute, utter, senseless chaos. And perhaps this season of Lent for me, and maybe you, has just turned 180 degrees. And will serve as a wake-up call for us, where maybe our prayer and our fasting will not be an end unto themselves, but move us toward a higher calling. A willingness to enter the fray. The willingness to enter the battle and the chaos so that others might simply live. My call to myself this morning and to you is this. It's time, friends. It's time to enter the chaos and not shield ourselves from it. We need to be willing to share ideas and thoughts and actions and purpose amidst the chaos. We need to feel safe in sharing those ideas. I invite you at noon, following this worship time, to come and share ideas. We will be talking about the senseless happening in Florida this past week. We will be talking about real issues because it's time to get our head out of the sand. March 1st, yes, March 1st, our bishop is going to be here in this church to talk about human sexuality. Oh. We will meet with the task force the conference has put together about human sexuality to find a way forward for this denomination so that we might truly be brothers and sisters of faith. We need to be there. We need to ask the hard questions. In April, the district will come together in this sanctuary, and we're going to approach and embrace the difficult topic of racism. There will be a seminar about racism and what we need to be doing and thinking about that topic right here in this sanctuary. We need to be there if possible. Friends, this is tough stuff. But God calls us into the chaos. And as we do, Jesus is there beside us. No longer do we have the luxury of saying, I don't hear the chaos. I don't see the chaos. Friends, it is in our midst. And the good news is this, that we are able to enter that chaos. As we enter it with Jesus, as we enter it as brothers and sisters of faith, we are able. Are we willing? Let's pray. At times, Lord, it seems that this crazy world in which we live is too much. To many of us, it makes no sense. But rather than throwing our arms up in the air and walking away from it all, we commend our lives to you again. The one who strove for peace and justice and mercy and grace and forgiveness in the 3 years that you spent in your ministry. You call us into the chaos. You stand beside us in that chaos. Lord, we are able. In your holy name we pray. Amen.